Testing. One, two. One, two. We're going to get started, folks. Everybody, please take a seat. We're getting started. Madam Clerk, you're all set? Okay. Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Committee on Finance on public hearing. Monday, November 28th. It's just 5:44 now. I would like to ask if you are here to testify on a matter, there's sign-up sheets with the sergeant. Please sign up for on the sheets if you would like to testify. Please only sign for yourself, not for others. And we will call the matters one by one, and the sergeant will pull the sheets. Based on the number of folks here this evening, we're going to give folks, I think, about 2 minutes each. We'll see how that goes. With that, I would like to ask for a motion to combine items 1 and 2. May I have that motion? Motion made by Vice Chair Castillo, seconded by Councilman Nanducci. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. On items 1 and 2 are combined for purposes of testimony. Sergeant, could you please bring up the sheets for items 1 and 2 to the rostrum? So folks, people are still signing up, which is fine. I just ask you to, let's try to do so quietly, but we are going to get started with items 1 and 2. Madam Clerk, could you kindly read items 1 and 2 into the record?
Item 1, an ordinance establishing a tax exemption agreement from Provport Inc. And item number 2, resolution authorizing a lease extension and bond indenture for Provport Inc.
Who's speaking for the petitioner on items 1 and 2? Who do we have to testify? Good evening. Please identify yourselves for the record, and we're going to swear you in. Oops. I don't need to swear you in. Just please continue.
My name is Nicholas Heemand. I represent Provport. With me this evening to go through this agreement or proposed agreement with you is Chris Watterson. He's the principal of Watterson Terminal Services, which is the operating company, the management company of Provport. You have two matters before you. One, a resolution which will make possible for Provport to obtain bonds to fund further developments, further modifications, updates, and expansion of Provport's operation within this area that you see on the map at the bottom. The other is an ordinance extending the revenue sharing agreement that is in place between the city of Providence and Provport. And Mr. Watterson can kind of walk you through the history of how Provport and Watterson Terminal Services came to the initial agreement going back into the 90s. But what I'll talk to you a little bit about is the proposal before you tonight and the future of Provport. The current revenue sharing agreement with Provport is currently scheduled to expire in 2036. Under that agreement, in lieu of paying normal property taxes, Provport, which is a nonprofit organization, makes payments to the city in the form of a revenue share. So in 2023, the called for payment is $620,000. That would be the payment made in the coming tax year. At the end of that schedule, in the 13th year of what's remaining in 2036, the revenue sharing agreement, which would be $831,396. It's about 5.5% of the revenue generated by the operations of Provport. The proposal to extend the revenue sharing agreement, extend the lease to enable Provport to obtain bond funding would generate $11 million in bond funds based on current interest rates to Provport's operation. So $11 million. You'll see in the, and I apologize to Leader Taylor, who's got the worst seat in the house for this graphic, but you'll see on this current document, directly to the city of Providence to fund capital projects. We have no say in how the city of Providence will utilize those funds. Obviously, that's something for the government officials to do. But right away is $7 million in new money for the city of Providence to use in its neighborhoods to fund capital projects. The other big change is instead of the city taking in $620,000 in 2023, the revenue sharing agreement would be 7% instead of 5.5%. And therefore, the city's revenue share in 2023 would be $840,000. So in year one, the revenue share agreement would increase to more money per year than you're going to get in 2036. In addition to that, Provport will fund two additional sources of public benefit. One is a sustainability fund. You can see that'll be 1% of general revenue from Provport into the city for sustainability fund, which will be funding sustainability projects, and an additional 1% for a community benefit fund to do projects throughout the 15 wards of the city of Providence. All told, over the life of the extended agreement, it would be approximately $10.1 million in community funds paid from Provport to the city of Providence for it to utilize as it sees fit. This is a good agreement for the city. Now, as we've discussed with several other things that we've come before the council here in the last 2 months, the question becomes why now? And Chris can tell you about why it's important to Provport's operations that this happened now. But this is not something that came to fruition over the last couple of weeks. This is the product of negotiations and planning for the future of Provport over the last several years. It does extend it to 2053, but it's a dynamic revenue sharing model that as the bond proceeds expand the operation of Provport, we're not talking about outside of the port area. We're talking about a green marine certified port operation acquiring other port-related properties that don't meet the same standards as Provport, that aren't investing in clean technology and aren't investing in the future of the port in a sustainable fashion. That's what they do. And that's what this will allow them to be able to do. Without the financial certainty and long-term agreement that we propose to you today, the bonding just simply won't work financially, and they won't be able to do some of the things that Chris is prepared to talk to you about today. So the difference, I think, is seen very clearly on this graphic. I talked about city's going to get more and more revenue. So this is a good agreement. I think you'll hear from other people in the administration, both the existing and the future administration, as to their feelings about this. We look forward to discussing it with you tonight.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to present here tonight.
Please identify yourself for the record.
My name is Chris Watterson. I'm the General Manager of Watterson Terminal Services. We are the port operator for Provport. So I just wanted to draw your attention to this map here, which shows what Provport is and what Provport is not. Provport now, after a recent expansion, is about 135 acres in the Fields Point area of Providence. What Provport is not is what's commonly referred to as the greater Port of Providence, which has other private operators, such as Shell Terminal, Sims Metal Management, Rhode Island Recycled Metals, and Sprague Terminal. Those are not Provport. Provport has, for 30 years, been a very successful public-private partnership. In the image that you can see here on the left, this was the condition that Provport was in when the original 1994 deal was completed. Scrap tenants took up a majority of the port. There was, the infrastructure was crumbling. There was an open, uncapped landfill at the south end of Fields Point, and there was no public access to the water.
Could you be kind enough to turn those boards so that we can see them as well? Thank you. Thank you.
So the image on the right is what Provport looks like today. The building that has been constructed is by our new tenant, Ørsted, that will be supporting offshore wind operations and construction in the Northeast, bringing clean power to the electric grid here and helping both the city and the state meet their climate goals. We've also invested in renewable energy directly on the site with 3 new wind turbines, 1 on Provport and 2 on our neighbors, Johnson and Wales. And with the expansion of the property to the right, we took the former uncapped landfill, created a usable area for port use, and then also worked with our partners at Save the Bay to add public access to the south end of Fields Point. And this is the type of port operation that Provport and Watterson Terminal currently run and intend to expand in the future. The biggest opportunity that exists right now for the Port of Providence is offshore wind. We're currently the leaders. We were the staging area for the Block Island Wind Farm, the first offshore wind project in the country back in 2016. And we've used that experience to continue to grow. And there's a massive shortage and demand for port infrastructure to support that industry. We work very closely with the International Longshoremen's Association. Corey Tabor, their president, is here tonight. And most of their recruitment comes from the South Providence neighborhood in Washington Park. So we are the largest employer of the longshoremen in Rhode Island. So our vision for the future, by moving this process forward now, is twofold. One, we plan to fund and engage in a master planning process that will include community involvement. And when we do this now, it will open up opportunities for federal funding, for infrastructure dollars from the federal government that generally require this type of planning process. And it's our intention that that process will be inclusive and that it will support the greening of the port the same way that we've managed it over the last 30 years. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you.
I have one important figure I forgot to mention to you. I told you what they pay now. I told you about the increase under the proposed agreement. I didn't tell you what the taxes would be with no agreement, presuming that there was operation there. But the current assessed value of the properties that make up Provport, by our calculation, is approximately 795, would be a tax payment of approximately 795,000. So under the existing agreement, there's clearly a tax savings, but under the proposed extended agreement, in year one, we would be paying over the current assessed value, and presumably those figures would hold. So I wanted to mention that. I thought that was important context as well, but thank you.
Does that conclude your presentation? Okay, first, I'd like to recognize my committee members who are with me, Vice Chair Castillo, Councilman Narducci, Councilman Taylor. Let the record reflect that we also have Councilman Vargas. We have Councilwoman Helen Anthony, who's a member of the Finance Committee. We have Pedro Espinal, Council President Pro Tem. We have Rachel Miller, Councilwoman Miller. We have Council-elect Shelley Peterson is in the room. We have Councilwoman-elect Anna Vargas. Councilman-elect Justin Rios is with us. And I'd like to recognize our city solicitor, Jeff Dana. Councilman-elect Miguel Sanchez is also in the building. I'm sorry, folks, hard to see out there. Okay, with that.
And Sue Anderbaugh.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilwoman Anthony. I appreciate your help. Councilwoman-elect Sue Anderbaugh is also here. Okay. Let's start with opponents on this item. And again, please come to the podium and then identify yourself for the record. We're going to call Devon Pincus. Devon Pincus.
Hi, my name is Devin Pincus. Thank you for your time today. So my name is Devin Pincus. I'm a Providence resident. I've been in this building probably dozens of times over the last several years, always to play defense against a new incursion on the port. There is always a corporation, a fossil fuel company that is looking to gain a foothold, expand its footprint, or cover its tract, all against the will and the health of the communities here. We've been here for the LNG plant, the C3 plant, the waste transfer station, illegal asphalt dumping, the list goes on. And it's thanks to a group like People's Port Authority, the REJC, that we have organized enough resistance to say no to some of these things and to be successful some of the time. But the fact remains that many of these people that are here in the room today, have to show up again and again to say no, to fight back, to resist the relentless pressure from the corporations that are continually trying to expand their footprint. And yet, here in Providence, we do have a climate justice plan. We do have groups that are working on the future of the port. We have the REJC, we have the Providence Sustainability Committee. I'm sure you will hear from some of those members today. So we have those groups, and yet the discrepancy between those groups, the existence of them, their aspirations, their goals, is completely at odds with what is happening here today. And it's insulting to a community that again and again needs to show up just to play defense, just to keep things from getting worse than they already are. So this opportunity to reimagine the arrangement on the port is an opportunity for the community to proactively engage in shaping the future of what the port is going to look like. We heard folks, representatives for Provport speak to their intention to undergo a master planning process. But the reality is that if this contract is signed, then there will be no leverage for the community to engage in that planning process. The contract will already have been signed. So to ram this agreement through in the last days of this council would be devastating to the future of the port. What we are asking for, and what I'm sure people will speak to over the course of the evening, is an opportunity for true public engagement, for an opportunity for the directly impacted communities of Washington Park and South Providence to have a meaningful hand in the process of shaping the arrangement. And at this point, we do not have that. So I am asking this committee to please listen to the community, reject this fast-tracked proposal, and give the people in this room and the communities that they are here representing a fighting chance to create a livable future and to proactively engage in thinking about what we want our community to look like. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Oquist.
Hi. It's unusual for me to testify.
Please identify yourself
My
for
name
the
is Steve
record
Alquist.
and your address, please. Thank
My name
you.
is Steve Alquist. I'm a reporter with Uprise, Rhode Island. It's unusual for me to testify as a reporter, but on certain issues, I think it's very important because as a reporter, I do deep dives into things and I have a little bit more experience than other people might have with the way these things work. I have a couple ideas and they're mostly random, but we'll go for it. If this is a good deal now, as is being purported, it will be a good deal in January. It will be a good deal in April. It will be a good deal after the community has had time to truly vet it, to really have an input into it. It doesn't, if it happens now, that doesn't happen. And there's no reason for the community to believe that this is a good deal because we'll never see what the possibilities were otherwise without a good, robust engagement. The master planning process is being advertised as something that will help the community get what they want out of this deal. But the master planning process, as has been pointed out, will be occurring after, not before a deal is signed. So the contract will in fact limit what the master planning process can ask for, what they can get. Also, I want to point out that the master planning process is not a gift to the community from the developer or from Waterston. It's a federally mandated precursor to securing federal funding. I doubt there would be a master planning process even included here if it wasn't for the money that's on offer from the federal government. So even that feels like a false promise. And then lastly, I'd like to ask a question. Is the value the port brings the city, which is substantial in terms of money and in terms of location and everything else, is the money this port brings to the city equal to the cost in terms of childhood asthma and the cost to the community? The money that people have to spend out of their own pocket to take care of their children who deal with medical issues brought about by the pollution that's caused in the port. Is it equal? Is it greater than? And how many kids are we going to hurt before we admit that maybe the cost is too high? And I really want to think about that because one of the things this committee would ask for is adherence to the climate plan that's been developed by the city and maybe start to think about how to zero out the emissions over the next 15 to 20 years or the life of whatever agreement we come up with. I think it's really important that we have that conversation. And so far that conversation has been had. And I see no mention of that in the original agreement, the agreement before this council, nothing about climate, nothing about climate justice, nothing about reducing emissions, nothing. And without that, how can this be a worthy document, worthy of consideration? So I hope you'll take that into account, and I really hope you'll vote your conscience on this and maybe do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oscar? Oscar Vargas?
Thank you, Madam. My name is Oscar Vargas, 150 Dora Street. Thank you to the members of the council. This is a rush plan. Why so rush? Will be a great thing to think about our kids, our families, and we can work out this project next year. It's going too fast. I haven't reviewed much about this project. It's a long shot, and I would like to have more time to review it and feel comfortable for the taxpayers and the constituents of the whole city of Providence. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Gray? Gray? Gravati?
Good evening. My name is Greg Garrett. I'm a resident of Providence. The first thing you notice about this agreement is that it does not have anything to do with the climate justice plan of the city. And it really needs to have climate as a first and foremost characteristic. Remember, we're facing sea level rise, and we're facing hotter temperatures, we're facing more asthma. The first thing you do when you're dealing with a big industrial site is you say, what's your climate justice plan? The second thing to think about is that we have a situation where the city is signing an agreement for a long time without having gone through a complete process. We're about to start a city comprehensive plan process. Shouldn't something like this come after the city has a comprehensive plan? Where we have to think about all of the different factors that were involved. Another thing to think about is that there's nothing in any of these agreements that talk about the nature and changes in the world trade system. Now, I know you're not supposed to talk about global trade when you're dealing with local issues, but the fact is that often we have misguided policy because we haven't thought about the changes in the trade system. And while people think we are going to continue to grow the economy and grow global trade, we are already at a point where we are losing all of our resource bases. And the economy is going to shrink because with 8 billion people, we're using up the resources faster and faster. We have to think very carefully about what it's going to look like as trade shrinks. And this plan doesn't account for that at all. So I think that what we really need is a very comprehensive and citywide discussion of the future of the port before we sign this agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Ellen Tizzulo?
Good evening. My name is Ellen Tizzolo. I'm a resident of Washington Park. And in preparing for this evening, I was thinking about all the ways I could express what I think and how I feel about this resolution and ordinance in front of you. And here are some of the questions that I asked myself. Should I give a list of the many, many unanswered questions I have about the port and about Provport, the nonprofit with executives making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year as a taxpayer and resident of Washington Park? Should I talk about the many days of stench and toxic air we already endure in South Providence? Should I talk about my 5-year-old and our trips to the emergency room when she's had breathing issues? Should I point out how incredibly extra stinky it smells that this council seems to be trying to ram this ordinance and resolution through right before a major change in leadership? Should I detail the many ways that the community has not been informed or included in developing an accountable plan for the future of Provport? Should I mention how this plan is not aligned with the city's own environmental climate justice plan? Should I talk about how absurd it is that Providence insists on deepening its support for fossil fuel industry and infrastructure when our world is desperately in need of a regenerative economy? And when we are literally melting, burning, and flooding our way into the rest of our time on Earth? I'm wrapping up. Should I beg and plead and get on my knees asking for you to consider my neighbors, our children, or even your own legacy? And also, should I ask what the plan is when all of these investments will be underwater in 20 to 40 years? So I've been into a lot of these hearings. I wish I could say I had more hope that any of what I'm saying is going to make much of a difference. And we're going to keep showing up and fighting these David and Goliath battles in hopes that you all are listening. It's absolutely not too late. And if you're hearing me, please do whatever you can to make sure that the ordinance establishing the tax exemption for Provport and the resolution establishing a lease extension and bond indenture for Provport are not passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Lawrence Mancini.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Finance Committee, members of the council. This evening, the city is giving testimony in favor of the Provport transaction, including the bond financing, which is before you as item number 2. Since early 2022, Madam Chair, City Finance, along with the administration, the PRA, and the Solicitor's Office, has been exploring a potential bond transaction with Provport. Concurrently, the administration and legal department have led a renegotiation of Provport's business agreements with the city. Under the proposed transaction, Provport, through the redevelopment agency, would issue certificates of participation in the following structure: taxable current interest bonds to generate $4 million to fund capital improvement projects at Provport; tax-exempt capital appreciation bonds, known as CABs, or zero coupon bonds to fund $7 million of projects in the surrounding area of Provport. They will be located near the port, which would mature between the years 2037 and 2051 at the same annual debt service level as the current Provport 2006 capital appreciation bonds, which mature in 2036, and that is approximately $1.84 million of annual debt service. Debt service on both series of bonds will be the responsibility of Provport and paid from their revenues. And as with the 2003 and 2006 Provport transaction, the city expects to provide its moral obligation to replenish a debt service reserve fund should it be needed to be drawn upon, and if not, it will be used to make the final payment on any bonds. The debt service reserve fund will be equal to 1 year's debt service, and once again, it will be used to make the final payment. The proceeds generated by the capital appreciation bonds portion transaction and therefore available to the city are based upon the limited debt service amount available from 2037 to 2051 in the amount of $1.84 million annually. And these are very sensitive to market interest rates. When the original proposal was first proposed, it was expected that there would be upwards of $10 million in proceeds. Today, based upon market rate changes, it is expected that it would generate close to $7 million. Also, Provport has agreed and offered to pay the $600,000 street abandonment cost for the current interest bonds. Madam Chair and members of the committee, I have a list of items that Provport has in fact completed, if you would permit me that opportunity.
Absolutely.
I'd like to read those into the record. I know there were others who testified before me, but it is important to note that Provport, the summary of recent activity at Provport. The offshore wind industry is poised to be the largest maritime industrial activity at Provport since the Kaiser shipyards in World War II. Provport has significantly entered into this industry, including the following: handling the first offshore wind turbines installed at Block Island and the first offshore wind project in the United States. Secured a lease with Ørsted, bringing the assembly of the offshore wind foundation components to Provport for Ørsted's Northeast projects. Secured an investment of over $20 million by Ørsted for the construction of a new building at Provport to support those activities. Invested along with Waterson Terminal Services in land improvements to secure the economic commitment of Ørsted. Acquired an 8-acre site along Fields Point Road that will primarily be leased to wind for the storage of cable needed to connect the offshore wind towers and to connect to the mainland. Invested over $500,000 in leasehold improvements in order to meet the requirements of wind. Leased 13 acres from Johnson and Wales University to expand the port and house autos exported by Grimaldi Lines. Currently underway with a $2 million improvement program for the Johnson and Wales property. And within the last 2 years, Waterston has purchased numerous pieces of heavy machinery with an estimated cost of $1.5 million to support the activities of all Provport tenants. All construction work at Provport and by its tenants has been accomplished utilizing labor from Rhode Island Building Trades. And finally, Madam Chair, members of the committee, all marine cargo related activity in Provport is handled by the International Longshoremen's Association. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and I'm available for further questions.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, Enrique Sanchez. Please identify yourself for the record, please.
Yeah, State Representative-elect Enrique Sanchez, District 9, Providence. Thank you for having us here today. There is a major concern in which our leadership at the City Council has decided to push for all these TSAs, tax stabilization agreements, with the development of the Providence Place Mall, the Superman TSA, and now this TSA and this agreement here that we want to grant this private corporation control and another 30-year tax break in control of the Port of Providence. It's time that we stop allowing us to be controlled by special interests, money at hand, by people who do not care for the well-being of the residents of Providence and the state of Rhode Island. There are sick children in South Providence. There are kids who are suffering from lead poisoning, from health implications, complications. And we are here continuing to allow special interests and corporations to have control over the people. I am here demonstrating opposition to this agreement. And I hope that the rest of the City Council and folks here vote against this. We cannot allow for this shared revenue agreement to be handed over to this private corporation. So I ask that you please take into consideration the economic, social economic well-being of the people of Providence before you push for a vote, because this will have negative implications financially, socially, and health-wise for a lot of people in Providence. But thank you. Thank you.
Julian Drix. Julian Drix. Sorry.
Good evening. My name is Julian Drix. I am here today for a few roles. I am a resident of the Washington Park neighborhood. I currently live in your ward, Councilwoman Castillo, and once the redistricting happens, I will soon to be in Councilman Espinal's ward. Thank you both for being here. I am also here as the chair of Providence's Sustainability Commission and was appointed to that commission by this very finance committee in 2019. So I thank you for that. Professionally, I worked at the Rhode Island Department of Health for 8 years, where I led the asthma program and provided the asthma data that is included in the city's climate justice plan. And as the director of the Health Equity Institute at RIDO, I served on the city's COVID task force to make the recommendations for the ARPA investments. So I thank you for all of the investments in those areas. I also, while I was getting my master's in public health at Johns Hopkins in environmental and occupational health, did my master's capstone thesis on the Port of Providence, where I researched best practices in ports around the country and understanding the environmental justice and climate change implications of ports and how to improve them. Personally, I am not here to paint Port as a bad actor. I do recognize the efforts that are being made to improve the area in the Port section and understand that other operations in the Port of Providence area are far worse. And I do support the union jobs in the Port area. That doesn't mean, though, that these two items that are before you today are a good deal as they are currently written, and that they do need to be improved in order to be a good deal for the city. The Sustainability Commission is a city body that was created through ordinance and was empowered with stewarding the city's sustainability goals. That same ordinance also adopted the Climate Justice Plan goals, and that Climate Justice Plan has numerous points about the Port of Providence and Port included in it. Chris Watterson, who spoke earlier, was also quoted in the plan. We appreciate that partnership and want to continue working together. If you approve the deal today and it is voted on and approved by the whole city council, it can violate that trust and disrupt what could be a much better working partnership if we took the time to work out a better deal that we could all agree on. There are deep structural issues in how the port is currently structured today. We do not have a master plan in place, and the fact that that was not already done speaks to the lack of engagement and planning that was put in place. Unlike other ports around the country, we do not have a port authority. I do recognize that Port joined Green Marine and is making optional decisions for themselves to be able to improve their operations, but that's just for the Waterson Terminal Service operations and not for the tenants of Port. We don't currently have plug-in power for tanker ships. We don't currently have any emissions inventory for the Port of Providence, let alone the Port area, let alone a plan to reduce emissions with clear and enforceable targets. We don't have an actual plan in place to transition out of fossil fuels and hazardous
Please wrap
materials.
up your remarks, sir.
Thank you, I will. On the topic of federal funding, there is also Justice 40 funding from the White House, which is from all federal agencies for investments in environment and climate, which designate disadvantaged communities, which includes the Port area for investment and funding. That funding is contingent on the environmental justice community. Please do not discount that community today. I have submitted a letter on behalf of the Sustainability Commission with 5 key points, and I ask you to please read through that entire 5-page letter before making your decision tonight. In summary of those 5 points, 1, there is no justification for urgency in currently rushing through this important decision right now before the end of the year. We need to promote the expansion of offshore wind, and that needs to be written into the terms of the agreement, not just the promotion around it. We need long-term decisions about Port to be integrated and aligned with the city's climate justice plan and other
Your 2
planning
minutes are up,
processes.
sir.
Thank you.
Please. Thank you. Andrew Poyant. Andrew Poyant.
Hi, I'm Andrew Poyant, and I live at 11 Trinidad Street. I'm here in opposition of both the resolution and the ordinance as currently written. As currently written, they're a bad deal for the city of Providence and for its residents. We've heard about, the wind expansion. I think everyone here is in support of that. However, that was talked about. It's not written into the agreement, either the resolution or the ordinance. And it's important that we say what we actually want to have in both of those. I'm a member of the People's Port Authority. We've been, wanting more community engagement around the port for a long time. And we should not be making 30-year deals without more public engagement. We shouldn't be rushing this. The tax agreement isn't up until 2024. The lease isn't up until 2036. There's no need to vote on this tonight and to move it forward. This should be settled by the next city council and have significant public engagement. While they talk about wind, which is great, they have not talked about some of the other polluters in the port. We have Univar, who in a worst case scenario has a hazard radius of 14 miles. Just for a sense of what 14-mile radius is, it's half the size of Rhode Island would be at risk if there's a big a big accident in the port. In addition to that, there's the C3 liquid propane gas facility that's in the port, which we are grateful that the city of Providence is fighting to oppose their expansion. I think it's important to note that the lawyer who represents C3 was also the lawyer representing Provport and speaking here tonight. So I think there are, many questions as to what everything is, what is being pushed for, and why it is being pushed and rushed right now. And I want to make sure that we do not have any long-term agreements that extend any fossil fuel or other polluters in the port, and that we are working to clean up the port so that we can have clean air throughout Providence. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda Perry. Linda Perry?
Hello, my name is Linda Perry and I live in Washington Park. I'm torn, to be honest. I am in favor of clean green port expansion, yet I am not in favor of any more pollution and harm to our neighborhood. We have lived with the results of the former port, and we can't breathe, basically. It's at a tipping point, and it is in the best interest of everyone to support new green growth at the port. However, as we know, the residents in our frontline community need or insist that our voices and health effects are calculated into the best practices going forward. And what does that mean? That means adhering to the environmental justice schedule impacts and to target our 2030 45 emissions reduction, which is not in the contract. And so we are forced to trust everybody, you and the lawyers in Provport, as much as we want to. There's things that need to be baked into the contract, as you heard from everyone, that it's just not there. We don't have the written confirmation of what we need to be certain that we will be protected. It's not just for the money. It's not just for the money, and it's not, we want jobs, we want a green economy, we want all of that, as you do, and people here do, but we want to be protected. And we have to throw ourselves at your mercy, to be honest. We have to let the council protect us in this case. So I feel that it could be better thought out. It's a little bit too fast, yet I am total agreement of the growth that Waterston Terminal intends to sustain in the new agreement. But I feel that we could have a better look at the comprehensive plan. Let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's, in plain English, let's do it in together in good time, and let's have more community input. So I'm ready to have a discussion with everybody ASAP and have meetings and exchange feedback, because we can't grow alone. We need to grow together. And
Thank you. Monica Hirsch.
Oh, Mónica Huertas. Um, Good evening, council. My name is Mónica Huertas. I'm here representing the People's Port Authority, but most importantly, I'm here representing Alex, Joshua, Jeremy, and Victoria. And those are the children who I brought into this world. And they are directly impacted. We live right in Washington Park. We would like to say that a policy decision such as this importance requires much more extensive community engagement. The master planning process needs to happen first before the tax agreement or lease extension. I'm asking you guys to trust the community process. I know you've heard a lot about the climate justice plan and how good it is. And I'm telling you that this plan, because we hear it so much, we're kind of used to people just throwing it out there, but this plan is coveted around the country. Little old Providence created a plan, okay, with community input, robust community input over a 2-3 year process where we outlined what our future could look like and what community members, community residents wanted our future to look like. We're also in communication. When I say we, I mean the community is in communication, the planning department with the Office of Sustainability and others to work on the comprehensive plan for the city. Now we want to ensure that all of these plans are going to be in cahoots, that they're going to make sense, that when one says, the other one follows. And we cannot do that process if we try to rush this process in the next 2 days. Again, I'm asking you to trust the community process. Trust that we have engaged robustly in various opportunities that we've had that we fought for. Because let me tell you, these opportunities to engage have been because community has demanded that we have a voice and that we engage in them. And we're actually making progress with Provport and Chris Watterson. And this is a perfect opportunity for them to say, you know what? Yes, extend the olive branch to us, City Council, I'm asking y'all. And so that we can actually continue the robust conversation that we've been having. This is not anti-union, and I have to say, and I hate that I have to say it, but I'm gonna say it until I turn blue. Because my family is extremely pro-union, and my husband, in fact, is a union carpenter with Local 330. And we're extremely proud of that. And we got
Please
the good
wrap up your
benefits.
remarks.
Well, and I would appreciate that you extend that courtesy that you extended to Provport, and you did not give them a 2-minute warning, and they spoke and spoke.
They're the
So
petitioner,
excuse
ma'am.
me,
Please
I
wrap
would
up
like
your
you to
remarks.
extend your graciousness that you extend to Provport,
Please
to the
wrap up your
community.
remarks, ma'am.
And I guess that's a sign that you won't. Excuse me, it wasn't over. She said to wrap it up, but she said it wasn't over.
Please wrap up. That's it.
Again, extend your grace that you extended to the suits in the back, to the community. Members that are here that we do not get paid to be here. We actually pay for parking and we pay ourselves to come here. We pay for childcare, as it's our right to be here and present to you all. They get paid to do so, and they get all this time and extended grace.
Please. Next. Dervra Levy. Dervra Levy.
My name is Deborah Levy. I'm a Providence resident in Ward 12. Thanks for our 2 minutes tonight. Wish we had more time. I've been working in the community with parents and families and with some of these environmental justice organizers for over 4 years. And I am standing in opposition of this ordinance with them tonight. As a young person who wants to stay in Providence and raise a family here, it's really important for me to know that my city government cares about the well-being of all of our community and wants to hear everybody's voices in this chamber and prioritizes community input and racial and environmental justice when making major financial decisions. It's a major factor in my decision about where to live, where to have my family, where to let my children grow up. I want to echo what everybody else has said before me tonight in opposition and say that it's irresponsible to not make a plan for the port that centers community voice before making such a long-term commitment, especially when we have so many experts in this room who've already put a lot of diligent work into putting a plan together. This isn't just about the children that are here today. It's not just about my future children who might grow up in Providence. It's about all of us, and especially people who live in the vulnerable areas that are most impacted by environmental injustice. They should be represented in the decision and the plan that's made, in addition to the posters that you have here. Where are their voices in this plan? This is an important and nuanced and impactful decision, and I recognize that there are a lot of sides to this, but I urge the committee to treat it with the importance that it deserves and listen to the expertise and the input of the advocates here today. Thanks.
Thank you. Jed Thorpe? Jed Thorpe.
Hi there, Jed Thorpe, 134 Thurbers Avenue. I'm here today as the Rhode Island State Director for Clean Water Action and speaking on their behalf. First of all, is it possible for me to give my 2 minutes to Monica Huertas?
Certainly can.
Okay. Monica, 2 more?
And thank you, Jed. And that's why I will always come here, because I have allies and I have people who actually care about our community. So like I was saying, we want to build, but we want to build healthy, good things that are going to be sustainable for the community and sustainable to the children. I would like to also point out that Provport is talking about all these green infrastructure and things that they have, and it's simply not true. Out of the 10 companies that they have, one company, 10 or so, one company is the so-called green development company. And that's the one that's supposedly going to bring the offshore wind stuff, and they're going to be able to build the wind turbines on the site. Excuse me, I'm talking. Can you hear me, or are you taking up my time? Well, I want the respect that I deserve so I can speak here. I take my time to come here to talk to you. I know the councilmen are hearing me and the councilwomen. Again, so just simply saying, to hear all these shenanigans about green infrastructure and green building is total BS, when they in fact have a bunch of companies that have liquefied natural gas, which this very council's lawyers have spoken against. They have Unilever, chemical manufacturing facility. They have Washington Mills aluminum oxide distribution, scrap metals, used automobiles, and bulk materials that are passed through this port constantly. We have the second highest asthma rate in the country. And to simply rush this is honestly just a disservice and a disrespect to all the work that we've done as a community and all the work that you guys as city council, because all of these, this work, and specifically with the climate justice plan that I was speaking about, has ordinances that you all have approved and passed. So it's work that we've done over the last 8 years, and passing this rushing because we're trying to do favors for our friends before we go is a slap in the face. And with that, now I'm done.
Keith Stokes. Keith Stokes. Sorry.
Madam Chair, Keith Stokes, Director of Business Development for the City of Providence. Thank you, Madam Chair and Council. I just want to briefly provide the general objectives of a master plan. I think it's important because the master plan has been something that's discussed tonight It's a very important part of the transaction process. The revised bond and lease extension agreements include the adoption of a master planning process prepared jointly by Provport and the Department of Planning and Development. The basic objectives of a master plan is to develop the port in a manner that is consistent with federal, state, and city laws. The master plan development and implementation process will require active city participation, including representation from the following departments: business development, planning and development, sustainability, and legal department. Any master plan process, and specifically port master plan processes, will require meaningful community engagement that is grounded upon environmental justice, relying on communication directly with the impacted communities and providing a direct means for their input to inform present and future operations. A Port master plan must be in conformance with the City of Providence Comprehensive Plan. And just to give you a sense of some of the standard port plan objectives, one is to design and build and operate a port that recognizes market factors that would affect the demand and use of the port operations, such as cargo handling facilities, offshore winds, staging requirements that were discussed earlier today. Objectives also require integrated economic, engineering, environmental, and safety considerations to all port development processes, and this will measure the long-term impacts of varying development options on both the natural and man-made economy. And most importantly, the position of Port, by having a master plan, would allow it to be positioned to be able to access and apply for and access federal grants to begin to expand the capacity and to improve the operation, and most importantly, mitigate any negative consequences to the affecting community. So that is just a general assessment of a master plan process would be. It's a comprehensive process. I had the privilege to be on the board of the Quonset Development Corporation, to be chair of the Quonset Development Corporation as we went through the master planning process for Port of Davisville. It takes time, it takes years, it takes significant community participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Miguel Sanchez.
Hi, Chairwoman and fellow
Welcome.
Committee members and fellow colleagues or future colleagues. It's an honor to be here in front of you all today. Today, I'm going to be testifying in strong opposition of item 1 and 2. I'm going to repeat the same things that have been said today. Thank you, everyone who has come out today to testify on behalf of this proposal. My biggest issue, similar to a lot of big ticket items that we've been passing recently, is just community engagement. The fact that we're talking about community engagement after the fact that this is signed, that's something that's a big concern of mine. And even at the micro level, I have neighbors that call me from time to time just saying, oh, why did this happen? Why did that happen right in front of where they live or do business? And that's a trend that I want to take in the opposite direction once officially sworn in. Community engagement should be key to any decision that we make as city officials. If we're not making the decisions on behalf of our communities, then what's the point of making those decisions? Like my brother mentioned earlier, special interest has a strong hold on our city and state government. It's been like that for decades. That's why when the opportunity to run as a city councilor this election cycle with so many term limits, it really motivated me and was a big reasoning to deciding to run. We're gonna have a completely new city council, and that's something I'm really looking forward to. Going back to the current proposal, community engagement hasn't been there, is the main reason. Everyone's kind of saying there's no need to rush this. And I mean, the reason we're rushing this is because 99.9% chance of the next council passing an agreement like this is not gonna happen. So that's why, in my opinion, I think the representatives of the port mentioned that's been going on for a couple of years now, negotiations in terms of this agreement. To me, in my perspective, to the public's eye, it's been rushed because we haven't been involved in those negotiations. So I plead to you to please put this on the calendar for February. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Doug Vincent. Doug Vincent. Doug Vincent. Victor, is that what it is? Sorry.
Hi, thank you, Chairwoman and Council and committee members. My name is Doug Victor, V-I-C-T-O-R, and I'm an almost 40-year resident of the South Side, the Elmwood neighborhood. 40 years ago, I chose to move into the neighborhood, and I wanted to live here because I wanted to live in a milieu of people that didn't necessarily look like me or think like me. And I wanted to live in a neighborhood where there were things that needed to be done. And certainly in the South Side, that has been historically true because of some of the historical impacts that have taken place, that have marginalized the South Side and made it and made them neighborhoods kind of outside of the city in some ways. The Port of Providence is also part of that historic legacy. And you folks on the Finance Committee and City Council, if this goes to City Council, have a grave and serious responsibility. My question is, as many others, what is the rush? I think we would like an answer to that. But I know in this format, answers are not given. This format allows residents like me to share. I have been a chairperson of the Elmwood and South Providence Crime Watch for over a decade and have dealt with many issues, salient issues, both here in the chamber and out on the streets of the Elmwood and South Providence neighborhoods. First of all, there are some things that cannot be ignored. One is the toxicity that is present in the land and in the air as a result of the activities and the historical activities in the Port of Providence and Allen's Avenue. Provport is part of that. We're facing an uncertain future with climate change and sea level rise. The storm surge that comes through at a high moon tide would not have easy consequences for Rhode Island, for the city, especially the lower lying neighborhoods of the city. If those toxins get pushed up the Providence River into the Jewelry District, into downtown, that this building here may be partially underwater, but underwater with toxins that have yet even to be identified. It may leave our city unlivable. That's part of your grave and responsibility. Tonight, as some people have said, the asthma rates are some of the highest in the country. These issues need to be addressed first and foremost. There need not be any fast tracking of these agreements with the port, with Provport?
Please wrap up your remarks.
I
sir.
will, thank you. The lawyers talk and they make promises. We're here, many of us have given hundreds and thousands of hours of volunteer time to make the South Side more livable, more welcoming, and more equitable. This issue around Provport and Port of Providence and Allen's Avenue are part of what we're striving for. Residents want and deserve
Thank you, sir.
to have health. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Justin Rios. Justin Rios.
Thank you, Chair, for holding this hearing. My name is Justin Royas. I'm a school social worker, licensed mental health counselor, and city councilor-elect of Ward 4, also known as the North End. I look forward to joining you all soon as future colleagues. But tonight, I'm here to add my voice to the growing opposition against these resolutions. I think it's well documented that for decades, the Port of Providence and its industrial businesses have caused significant cumulative harm to families living in our South Providence and Washington Park neighborhoods. These neighborhoods have been forced to take on unfair share of this state's pollution and have paid the ultimate price for it, with the highest rates of childhood asthma in this state, not to mention being overwhelmed with toxins that have been linked to child development disorders, cancer, neurological and respiratory disorders as well. In other words, the Provport, the Warrenton Terminal Services have for decades privatized the gains, and residents of Southside and Washington Park have socialized the costs with their own lives. As elected officials, we are sworn to protect the public's interest. That is why your decision tonight to determine whether you will move forward with these resolutions are high stakes, because literal lives are on the line. If this gets shoved through, the status quo prevails, more families are poisoned, and we will be shutting the door on the opportunity to change the legal structure of Provport so that it finally becomes accountable to the public for future generations to come. And in my opinion, it will be a colossal mistake for this committee to use this lame duck session to fast track yet again another massive deal for another problematic industry, a deal that was negotiated and developed without public input and participation. The speed at which this is being pushed through feels undemocratic and goes against good government practices, especially when the tax agreement doesn't expire until 2024 and the lease isn't up until 2036. The rush to get this done with the potential of devastating lifelong consequences while the vast majority of this city isn't paying attention is, in my view, disappointing, harmful, and unethical. And so I urge this committee to do the right thing tonight, to give Southside of Washington Park and all of Providence a moment of hope and relief by rejecting these resolutions. Our most vulnerable families in the city can't afford 30 more years of being overburned with toxic pollution. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kathleen Gerard. Kathleen Gerard.
Thank you for your time. My name is Kathleen Gerard. I'm a resident of Providence. And as I've been listening to my fellow citizens and residents speaking in opposition to this resolution and this ordinance, and it's worth mentioning that the people speaking in opposition are overwhelmingly residents and citizens who are here on our own time, not people who are here as part of our employment, not people who very likely live elsewhere, but the people who live here in Providence. As I've been listening to them try to persuade you to just slow down in this process, I've been thinking, how can I add anything else? to persuade you. If not the environment, if not the health of children and families who live in the vicinity of the port, all I can think of is your legacy. And if you rush this through, if you ignore the process of open government and including the community that Rhode Island should be so proud of, you will regret it. It's going to make you look very bad. The only time that policies, resolutions, ordinances are rushed through at the end of a session is when there's something sketchy, when you don't want the public to take part, when you're looking at your phone instead of listening to the citizens who are speaking to you. Is it the lobbyists?
Please wrap
checking?
up your marks.
Our voices are the ones who have voted for you and the ones who will vote you out if necessary.
Thank you very much. Camille Nixon. Camille Nixon. Camille Nixon.
My name's Camille Nixon. I'm not a resident of Providence, but I live in Warren. And so I'm in Providence quite a bit. I'm 65 and I've noticed a terrible problem with the air pollution. It's changed since I was a girl and it's not getting better. And I've also noticed that, and I've done research, the population has doubled since I was a baby. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse. We're getting more people. And I noticed in this agreement, there's no assurance that the emissions will be curtailed. So in 30 years, there's no assurance that they're going to stop making it worse. And also the solar and the wind farm is great, but there's no assurance that that's going to continue. There's no promise there that that will be something that they really deal with. And I think that we need to listen to people that are saying that we need to look at this more seriously, not just throw ourselves right into it, especially when there's time to think about it. So I'm just asking you to please think about it a little bit more. It's going to get worse. We're not going to be able to breathe. The water is going to start rising and it's not going to be good. And if we just say, okay, it doesn't matter, we'll just let it go through, then we're going to suffer and people are going to suffer. And we already are. I can't stand being in South Providence sometimes because it's so horrible. That's not the way it was when we were little. It's not going right. And we need to stand up and make sure it goes right for our children's children's children. And
Thank you very much. Liza Birkin.
Hello. Hi. Hi, my name.
Identify yourself for the record.
Yeah, my name is Liza Birkin. I live at 56 Wood Street. This is my first time before you talking about the port. I know that there is just a phenomenal amount of distrust and harm and a long legacy of activism and difficulty around this port. I felt hopeful listening to Director Stokes describe the master planning process. And it seems to me as a resident, like insane that there is not yet a master plan for the port. And it's very exciting that that is finally about to happen. And so to me personally, the order in which we're doing this seems totally backwards. We must have a master plan for the port first before any tax exemption is considered. It just seems very out of order. And like others have said, incredibly rushed. for no good reason that any of us can see. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Annabelle Williams.
Good evening. My name is Annabelle Williams, and I'm delivering a testimony of opposition on behalf of Mariah Hinderer, who is a resident of Washington Park. My name is Moira Hinderer. I live on Fisk Street in Providence in the Washington Park neighborhood. I'm submitting this comment because I'm very concerned about the current Port of Providence proposals before the committee. At a time when South Providence is facing big challenges due to the legacy and current practices of environmental racism and the current and future dangers of climate change, we cannot enshrine old deals. I ask the committee to take time to plan for sustainable future of the Port of Providence and South Providence residents and to take into account the findings of the Providence Sustainability Commission. Thank you, Moira Hinderer.
Thank you very much. Everett Pope. Everett Pope.
Everett Pope, 173 Montgomery Avenue. I'm basically going to echo kind of a lot of what the opposition is saying, but in a less articulate way. First and foremost, I don't think this should be going down in this manner because there are multiple communities that are going to be affected by a 30-year agreement. Like if this agreement were to actually, take place and transpire, I'd be like damn near 60 years old before it's done. And I'm very, very young right now. 1, 2, there's like a serious lack of transparency and community involvement in these things, considering that everybody said like very, very beautifully before I came up here, people are going to be impacted, for quite literally the remainders of their lives. There's a bunch of studies. You guys are intelligent. I'm not going to sit here and bore you with all that information, but I really do feel moving forward when we're doing these agreements that affect people in these neighborhoods, we have to get the community involved, not at the last minute, at the 11th hour, like as this is actively going on, because something that was said repeatedly, like Providence has a plan for going green or whatever, and this was not mentioned. Homeboy who was talking on behalf of whatever company that does the actual work on the ground, he said he wants a more inclusive process. Like he literally said that. So what out of this is being inclusive? You have people who everybody here is a working person. I came straight from work to here. This is exhausted. This is literally you're taking my life energy away from me. So I just, hope moving forward that when you guys are making decisions concerning other people, that you claim to represent, that you actually involve them in the process. In terms of the community budgeting, I would appreciate if that could be, actually community inclusive and have the community make recommendations and all of those things. And then lastly, where's the oversight on these people? Monica came up here and said that out of all the companies that they have doing business, operating out of the port, whatever, only one of them is an actual renewable, sustainable thing. How does that make sense? If everything that we're doing is trending towards, sustainability and renewable stuff, I just feel as though the whole process is kind of like a sham. It doesn't make sense. And I'll leave on this, like Steve said, if it's a good deal today, it should be a good deal tomorrow, the day after, January, February, November next year. It's a good deal. So we should not rush this.
Corey Tabor. Corey Tabor. Corey Tabor.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Corey Tabor. I am the president of the International Longshoremen Association working out of Providence. I'm just here to basically say that the Providence brings in a lot of revenue. I have about 100 people in my union that work, make a good living, and I also hire about 230 to 250 people in the community of Washington Park and South Side on a daily basis to work in the Proudport. Now, I hear a lot of things about, asthma, and I'm very sympathetic to the community, the members who have asthma or their families. But let's face it, we have a lot of airborne allergens as far as thousands of trucks and cars that go by on the highway. We have low-flying airplanes that go over that port with jet fuel that also have, airborne allergens that can cause asthma. Chris Waterson and Waterson Terminal, they are moving very fast forward ahead with the renewable energy as far as the windmills go. We've sent a few people to the Netherlands to learn how to run all the equipment so when it comes, we can be on a fast pace to get these windmills up. I just don't feel like it's, I don't think it's fair to blame the Port of Providence and Chris Waterson for, the health complications that some people are having when we have a lot of other things that have airborne allergens that cause a lot of these things that the people are worried about. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sue Andebois.
Hello, Sue Andebois, resident of the City of Providence, councilperson-elect for Ward 3. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight, to my future colleagues and current council members. I'm here in opposition to items 1 and 2. And as a longtime climate advocate, I've stood before you as the former chair of the Sustainability Commission. People have already said those things. So I will share with you as a future colleague of yours why I'm in opposition to this. I feel that this process is rushed. As my Ward 3 resident, Steve Alquist already shared, if this is a good deal today, and maybe it is, I don't think so, but maybe it is, it'll be a good deal in a month. It'll be a good deal in April. This is being rushed. And there are a number of plans that have already been mentioned. One that hasn't been mentioned as much is we're about to go through the 10-year comprehensive planning process, a whole process for the whole city's future zoning and things like that. People have been looking forward to this. I have neighbors and colleagues who've been very excited about this because we've been told this is the time we'll be able to address some of these big issues. If we enter a 30-year contract in the Port of Providence, that is now off the table for that planning process. We've also heard a really exciting master planning process that could happen. But if we sign a 30-year contract before a master planning process happens, there's no reason to participate in either the comp plan process or the master planning process. We've already drawn the conclusion of what's going to happen. So as your future colleague, I ask you to please not pass this now. Let's go through those planning processes. Let's see what happens. Let's hear from the community first, and then lead in that way. And I trust that that's the way that we want to work, that we want to be transparent and we want to hear from our constituents and do the right thing on their behalf. So thank you so much for the time. I look forward to serving with you and having an open, transparent government with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee and the council. My name is Jeffrey Dan. I'm the city solicitor. So I'd just like to provide some background or context to what is before you in conjunction with what currently exists. There is a lease agreement between the city and Provport for operating that portion of Provport, of the Port of Providence, that does not expire until 2036. So they will be continuing to operate that at the very least through 2036. Provport reached out to the city to have an extension of that agreement, to expand the length of it, as they were working with potential opportunities to expand wind energy production at Provport. The sublessees that they would be contracting with
want to know that there's a longer term commitment. So the city has been working with Provport or negotiating terms for these agreements over the last 3 years. It's been a lengthy process at which we've been trying to improve the terms for the city's benefit. I'll try to just highlight some of the key differences between what we currently have and what we would have if these agreements were to pass. As I said, the lease that exists currently does not end until the end of 2036. The change would expand that into the end of 2052. The current revenue sharing agreement expires in 2024. A new revenue sharing agreement that would run in concert with the lease extension would change these terms. Currently, the minimum annual payment the city gets is $200,000, and the percentage of gross revenues the city has been receiving has been roughly between 4.5% and 5%. Under the terms of the new revenue sharing agreement, the minimum the city would receive would be $740,000, and 9% of gross revenues is what the city would be receiving. Of that, 1% each would go into a sustainability fund and a community benefits fund. There's also funding to provide for a master plan for Provport. It's a master plan for the city and Provport to work together on the Provport portion of the port, which again, it's important to note that that is just the portion that Provport operates on behalf of the city pursuant to the lease agreement with the city. Many of the I think more concerning operations that have been discussed are not part of that. They're located in a different section of the Port of Providence and are not operated by Provport. Other changes that the city will get from this new agreement, a changed agreement, would be greater transparency. There's increased reporting requirements, quarterly financials, certification by a CPA that there's no default on an annual basis. We also have included in the agreement stronger enforcement mechanisms via what are cross default provisions. So currently, if they're not in compliance with any portion of the agreement, of the revenue sharing agreement, the city has to go through has to keep track of it, go through a process of enforcing it with cross default provisions between the revenue sharing agreement and the trust indenture. That's the agreement that would provide for the bond. Mr. Mancini, the city's CFO, mentioned that a key piece of this is a bond that would be issued to have millions of dollars put towards community projects. Well, that agreement, these agreements would all run the same timeline. And the cross default provision provides that any violation or non-compliance with the revenue sharing agreement to the city would also be a violation of the trust agreement. So that would be a problem for Provport because then they would be violating the agreement they have with their investors. One example of a provision that we would want strong enforcement of is the MBE, WBE requirements that we have in here. So the increase in jobs that I believe one of the gentlemen recently discussed, there are provisions that would encourage local residents to have first access to those jobs. So I think those are the highlights of the differences between the current agreement we have and the new agreement. And the context for the timing of it is that there's this opportunity to expand the wind energy production in that location. And Provport and the city have been aggressively negotiating these terms for the last 2.5 to 3 years.
Thank you,
Nothing
sir.
further. Thank you.
Okay, I don't have anyone else signed up to speak. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to speak on this topic before I close it? Yes, I see a hand. Please identify yourself for the record.
I'm Diego Arene, 224 Adelaide. Thank you so much for having me. I think one thing that is like the key part of what can't be missed, even if the agreement is exactly the same and you go through the community planning process that so many people want, that would be the right way to do it. The rule is only as good as the process that you go through to come up with the rule in the end. That's what I'm hearing. The second thing that I want to point people's attention to that I haven't heard people talk about is number 2 in the resolved of the resolution. It says, and to me, it sounds like a bailout. This is my concern, and I would love to talk more with Mr. Stokes about this. In order to enhance the marketability of the additional certificates or the bond money given to Provport to make the infrastructure investments, in order to enhance the marketability, number 2 in the resolution, the mayor is authorized on behalf of the city to enter into an agreement which provides that in the event that the revenues pledged for the repayment of the bond is insufficient to pay for such bond, the mayor shall submit a request to the city council to fund the amount of any shortfall. What I think that means is that if the companies don't produce enough revenue to pay back the money that we lend them, the mayor will have to come back to city council to make the money up. The mayor doesn't even have a choice in the matter. It says the mayor shall submit a request to city council. That sounds concerning to me. Would the companies not agree to this agreement if that was taken out? And if not, why not? That seems like a legitimate question to me. I haven't heard that come up yet, and I didn't want to miss that. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, that concludes the public hearing portion of this meeting on items 1 and 2. Sergeant, will you please bring the sheets for item 3 to the rostrum? Thank you, sir. Okay, we have Jeff Dana. Jeffrey Dana. Actually, we have the petitioners on this matter. Sorry. I had so many sheets to go through before. Petitioners on item 3, and let's read item 3 into the record.
Item 3, an ordinance, an amendment of ordinance number 2019-55, number 541, approved December 13th, 2019, an ordinance establishing a tax stabilization agreement for E2000 Realty LLC located on Assessor's Plat 113, lots 232, 233, 234, and 235, 541 Hartford Avenue.
Okay, we have the petitioners before us. You have some presentations there that you'd like to put up. We'll give you time to do that. And then I'd like to ask you to identify yourselves for the record.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to start.
Please.
For the record, my name is Jeffrey Padua. I'm a resident of Providence. My law office is at 1 Park Row. With me tonight is Cheryl Ray. She's a representative from E2000 Realty LLC, architect Eric Zwena, and our financial analyst consultant, Michael Lashinsky. I'll make an introduction and then we'll have each of them provide some testimony, little question and answer testimony. So I represent Cheryl and her husband and her father who own this realty company. They bought these 4 parcels on Hartford Avenue about 23 years ago. It's about a 60 or 70-year-old building. They put a significant amount of money renovating it at that time.
Excuse me, could we have quiet in the back of the room, please? I'm sorry, Mr. Padua, please continue.
It's okay. They spent a significant amount of money in renovating this building about 23 years ago, and it's run its course. So they want to invest $9.5 million into a new building, which is mixed use. The first floor will have 2 tenants.
One tenant will be a property management company with 4 or 5 new employees. And the other tenant will be Cheryl's employment agency. Cheryl has run an employment agency out of this location for about 20 or 25 years. Before COVID, she was placing 1,000 people a week in jobs. Now it's about 500 or 600 people a week. About half of those people, so 300, 400, 500 people a week are from the Silver Lake Hartford Park neighborhood. This is a lower socioeconomic neighborhood that needs housing. They will have a really nice street front along Hartford Avenue. The 3 upper floors will have 10 units of 1 and 2 bedrooms each. These units will be rented at a discount to the market. It's called workforce housing. About 85% of the market rate will be the rent. So hopefully more affordable for this neighborhood. We're requesting a 10-year tax stabilization agreement based on the investment in this neighborhood of $9.5 million. So that's the gist of the project. So let me now have Cheryl give some testimony. Cheryl, why don't you start off by telling the committee about yourself and your work?
So we've owned the property. Good evening. My name is Cheryl Ray. We've owned the property, like Jeff has said, for over 20 years. We've made improvements. We run a realty company that manages the property. And I've also run my staffing company out of this location for close to 25 years now, again, employing many, many people from the area. So that is my professional background.
And are you the owners of E2000 Realty LLC with your husband and your father?
We are a family-owned business.
And when you purchased those properties and
We purchased the properties in June of 2000, and to say the least, I'm sorry, we purchased the property in June of 2000, and they were in a big disarray. So we've made major investments in them. We've cleaned up the property, and since we have run our business out of there.
So there's 3 parcels. There's basically 3 parcels are parking lot, and 1 parcel is the building that you work out of, correct?
Correct.
So after owning these parcels for that long of time, why are you proposing this project at this time?
There's just an extreme need for affordable workforce housing, especially in our area. It will be a great improvement to the property, a great improvement to the area. And it's also a business opportunity for us to add to our real estate holdings.
Do people ask you from time to time about if there are apartments to rent in the neighborhood?
Our traffic flow is heavy for our employment agency, and we get daily requests. Do we have any more apartments available? Do we have any more apartments available? They know we own 2 units behind us that have 5 units where we're full, but we get daily requests to, can we get on a waiting list?
So in terms of the number of jobs that will be created after this project is completed, the management company, that's one of the tenants on the first floor, about how many new jobs will be created?
There'll be about 5 new jobs there.
And on the employment agency side, how many people do you have working there now?
So we have 15 people that work.
They place about how many people in temporary and permanent jobs?
So between 500 and 600 a week, post-COVID, close to 1,000.
All the questions I have for you. Madam Chairman, now I'll have architect Eric Zwena. Eric has been recognized as an expert as an architect and has testified at numerous public hearings. So ask you to acknowledge his role as an expert architect here. In lieu of that, I could have him talk about his background. I don't think, is that necessary?
It
No?
is not necessary.
Thank you.
He can provide his background if he'd like to the clerk. We can attach it to the matter.
Okay. I will submit his resume.
Thank you.
So, Eric, would you please describe the architecture and the design of this project using the storyboards?
Sure. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here talking about this exciting project. It's a refreshing opportunity to sort of curate the perfect program for public space and upper floors for residential. It's a, owner occupied site now, and that tenant and owner intend to stay and be the anchor tenant for the front corner of this Hartford Avenue site. And above, there'll be 30 well-appointed workforce housing units. I have floor plans here, and I could walk you through those units just to show you the livability of them. But they all range from about 500 to 700 square feet. There's 27 one-bedrooms, and there's 1 2-bedroom per floor. So a total of 30 units in total. And on the first floor, again, there are 2 commercial tenant spaces, one at approximately 2,500 square feet, which will be the anchor tenant and current owner of the project, and the second is a tenant to be determined. Great opportunity to activate this sidewalk, pedestrian-friendly street and corridor, providing the adequate parking for the project in the rear of the building, taking the parking off the main corridor, allowing for the main corridor to be something that is more pedestrian in nature and approachable by foot. On the upper left, there's a rendition of what this building will look like using 1 brick masonry first floor product and 3 different cementitious products on the upper 3 stories. On the bottom left, you have some elevations of what this building will look like. On the top right, a storyboard showing some existing conditions and the current condition of the 60-plus-year-old building that stands there today. So a drastic difference in scale and size, but same height, approximate height, same height of the building, and an opportunity to really densify this site with some great housing with affordable housing product. I'll just flip the boards quickly and just talk quickly about the floor plans, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
We're not going to answer any, we're not going to ask you any questions. We're just admitting your testimony at this point.
Thank you. Noted. So I'll keep it brief and just point out a
Please.
typical floor plan of the second and third floor, showing the dark blue at the corner, which is a 2-bedroom unit, and the additional lighter blue colors, which are all 1-bedroom units. And again, 27 1-bedrooms, 3 2-bedrooms, a total of 30 well-appointed workforce housing units. And I'll answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Let me just make sure. City Council has published some questions they want to make sure we address. So let me just go through them and make sure you've addressed them. So what's the total square footage of the building being constructed?
Just over 31,000 square feet.
And how is each space being allocated?
We have 2 commercial tenants, one being the anchor tenant, which is our client, and then 30 apartments upstairs.
And what's the square footage for each space?
The commercial tenant spaces are 2,500 and are just shy of 1,500 square feet. And the 30 apartments range between 520 to about 700 square feet.
So the residential square feet is a little over 20,000?
Yes, yes.
And the 1-bedroom apartments are between 500 and 700 square feet, and the 2-bedroom apartments are about 900 square feet?
That's correct.
If the project moves forward, how long will it take to construct?
I would estimate this project to be about July 23, about 12 months.
And what are the costs of the permits, building and others being paid to the city of Providence in connection with this project?
They're estimated at plus or minus $210,000.
Thank you. Madam Chair, that's all the testimony I had for Mr. Zwena. Now I'd like to have our financial consultant, Michael Lashinsky, come and answer some questions for us.
Mr. Padua, the questions that the council poses, can you present that to the clerk, please? You have a summary of that we can attach to this record?
Not compiled all in one, but I'm happy to get
Okay.
that together for you.
Please, thank you.
Mr. Lashinsky has also testified previously at public hearings in connection with tax stabilization agreements, and like to have his bio or CV included in the record. Michael, what is the present value of the building as it is today?
As it is today, the total assessed value is $578,000.
And that was determined by basically adding up the assessed value on the property cards for each of the 4 properties and summing them, right?
That's correct.
And what will be the value of the building upon completion?
We came up with $2,051,805.
And would you explain how you calculated that?
Sure. I looked at a few comparables in the area, one being the 901 lofts. And I looked at a per square foot basis and a per unit basis. And we took the more, I would say, conservative approach and came up with our total assessed value. And I even went a little further and looked at other multifamilies on Hartford Avenue within less than 1 mile from this location on a per square foot basis. And we used a higher assessed value, even as far as 100% above.
And the result was the value of the building upon completion, $2,051,805, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. What is the total amount of property taxes being abated if this tax stabilization agreement is approved?
So over a 10-year period, the total amount that would be abated is $289,558.
How much money is being invested in the project?
Well, it's like 8.3 in hard and total project costs about $9.5 million.
And will there be new construction dollars invested?
Majority of it, yes.
And what will be the average rent of, let's start off with the 1-bedroom apartment.
So of the total 30 units, about a little more than half will be workforce housing. So I'm going to start with the market rate. And we have $1,650 for a 1-bed for market. And then we have that same 1-bed at $1,415 for workforce. And that's about a 15% reduction, as Jeff had mentioned. And then a 2-bedroom market would be 19, while a workforce housing 2-bedroom, same apartment size and everything, would be $1,560, about an 18% discount.
How many jobs will be created during the construction of this project?
On average, it's usually, a rule of thumb is 12 jobs per million. So about 9 million would be roughly 108 jobs.
And if the project moves forward, is there full financing to begin the project? And if so, can you describe the capital stack for us?
Sure. So we're still working with our lenders in Rhode Island Housing since we are going for workforce housing. But let me see, it's about 46% debt, 20% equity or $2 million in equity, and then 33% in Rhode Island Housing Workforce Program.
Madam Chair, that's all the questions that I have for these witnesses. I have addressed all of the questions that the council provided. I do have them. I will get them to you. If I have to, you can have my typed and handwritten notes on top of them.
I may need that for the hearing after, but thank you. Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. David Marshall next. Okay, he's gone. Chief Mancini, you're on here. Would you like to speak now, Chief? Sorry, I didn't see you. Chief Mancini, please join us.
Good evening again, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I am joined this evening by my assessor, and I just was comparing some of our notes with Attorney Padua. So, Madam Chair, we have no objection to the matter as it presented before you, and we will give further testimony in committee at the appropriate time based upon the tax stabilization agreement, along with the calculations that were provided by the tax assessor's office.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Oscar Vargas I have. Oscar Vargas?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Oscar Vargas, 150 Daughter Street. It's a great project. It's going to look beautiful, but one question I have they talked to the community? Because all this neighborhood around there is one family house. The building that they bought is a 3-family next to them. And I understand employment in 2000 being employing a lot of people, especially in my community. I want to say thank you for that. But if they have enough money to buy these buildings, why they asking for help for the taxpayers, the people who lives around them, to help them for 10 years? It's a $9 million investment. And for the next 10 years, they will make money out of, they're starting at $1,500, 1-bedroom apartment. I won't be able to support that rent. People are paying $1,200 now for 3-bedroom apartment. But $1,500 for 1 bedroom, you had to make at least $80,000 a year to support that. And I don't have enough information on this. This came out of nowhere, like a surprise, like a small gift for Christmas. I would like to have more talk about this project and work it out in the future council. Thank you.
Thank you. Anna Vargas. Anna Vargas? Going once? Going twice? Anna Vargas? Anna Vargas. Okay, Enrique Sanchez. Enrique Sanchez. Enrique Sanchez. Ellen Tuzzulo. Ellen Tuzzulo. Ellen Tuzzulo. Ramon Perez. Ramon Perez. Okay. John Igliozzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members and council members. As this proposal, as you can see, is actually in the 7th Ward. It's on Hartford Avenue and Glenbridge Avenue. I know, I'm very familiar with the old building, the existing building there. I used to deliver papers out of there when I was a kid with me and John Tessio way back when. And there used to be the shoe shack. And that building hasn't changed in 100+ years. About 25 years ago, I got to meet Cheryl Ray, Employment 2000. They decided to buy the building. They cleaned it up. We have the parking lot the best they could. And they started employing my neighborhood, anywhere between 500 to 1,000 of my constituents on a weekly basis in temporary and permanent jobs, temporary jobs and temporary jobs, sorry, right? And some permanent jobs. And today they're still doing it and they're growing to a point now that they want to add, not only creating jobs in my neighborhood, not only adding a new facility in my neighborhood, but adding 30 affordable housing units in my neighborhood. So, you know, my neighborhood is not wealthy. My neighborhood, the rents are based on your neighborhood, and my neighborhood is not. And this area is a low-income area, and my neighborhood needs more housing. This workforce housing will have, this proposed project is going to tear down the old building, put a brand new fabulous building in my neighborhood on Hartford Avenue, which we haven't had development on there for a very long time. And they're showing that they're willing to invest in this neighborhood. They're going to continue the footprint of providing employment. And now we're going to have housing, affordable workforce housing. This is a phenomenal project. I've been working on it for the past couple of years. It hits all the bells. They went through the process, the new process. And I heard some folks saying that somehow this is going to be a state-run facility. It's not. This is not a homeless shelter. My neighborhood is not looking. This is about affordable housing, workforce housing for my neighborhood and people that work there, and giving them an opportunity to have work and live. So I ask and urge the committee to support it. It hits all the bells. We should all be proud of it. This is a wonderful neighborhood project that we all can be proud of that actually does what we all said we wanted to do. So I ask, urge you all to support it. If you have any questions, of course, I'm more than happy to ask. Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, that wraps up, City Sergeant, that wraps up item 3, correct? Nothing else on 3? Okay, that concludes the public hearing portion for item 3. Let's read 4 into the record, and Sergeant, if you could bring up the sheets.
Item 4, an ordinance establishing a tax stabilization agreement for 71 Richmond LLC.
Okay, may we have the petitioner present themselves in this matter that's before the committee? Sergeant, if you could just put those boards off to the side, we may need them later. Thank you, sir.
Good evening again. Nicholas Heeman from Darrow Everett on behalf of 71 Richmond LLC. This is Eli Schwartz. He's the principal of 71 Richmond LLC. And this is an application under the ordinance for a 10-year tax stabilization agreement to assist in a form of a public-private partnership to complete an interesting project. This is a building most people who spend time downtown will be familiar with. For me, it was always the first thing I'd see coming out of the Garrahy Courthouse, but now that the garage is in the way, I don't see it every day. But it's an existing brick building. It's been there a long time. Over the years, it's housed particularly hospitality-oriented businesses in the downtown area. Fallen into a bit of disrepair over the years. And Eli purchased the property, has already been through the permitting process with the Downtown Design Review Committee. So this is a fully approved project on the city side of the ledger to do a rehabilitation of the existing building. But the primary driver of the construction here is going to be new construction of a 10 residential unit building, which will sort of fold over and incorporate the existing building. So preserving, is it a historic structure?
It's a contributing.
So, right, it's got contributing status, so it has to be preserved, but bringing into a new construction phase to bring 10 apartment units to downtown. These will be market rate units, a mix of studio units, a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and actually a 4-bedroom unit, which is very rare in downtown, with the idea that these apartments would be targeted towards people that have children and that want to live in downtown, that have a family, that have need of a product that's not really in existence with many of the other projects, at least that I've been a part of in downtown, that tend to focus on the smaller units. The construction estimate here is approximately $3.8 million. It'll create approximately 50 construction jobs. It will preserve, by enhancing the marketability of this particular existing building, it should preserve and strengthen the strength of the hospitality-oriented businesses that are there, which employ probably about 50 people right now. The units, the cheapest units, or I shouldn't say cheapest because it's not cheap, but the lower end of the rent spectrum is for the studio unit, which would be approximately $1,600 a month in rent. The more expensive unit is the 4-bedroom unit, which is approximately estimated to be about $3,500 a month in rent. But it's a small project. It's difficult when you're working on preservation. It has increased construction costs because of the way that they're incorporating the existing building into the new construction to bring the residential units to Richmond Street. Right now, the property is valued by the assessor's office around $1 million. We anticipate the final estimated value after construction to be somewhere in the range of $3.5 million. The anticipated savings, according to the 10-year TSA rates, would be approximately $360,000 in total taxes. But you'll see an increase significantly in that first reassessment after the construction is completed. A construction timeline is about 18 months, start to finish. Financing is in place, subject to our being fortunate enough to gain approval from this committee. Much of that's contingent upon that. And it really is an interesting project. I have been involved with various different proposals over the years to try to do something else with this business. There's often been longer term leases with the existing buildings, which are to nightlife establishments. So one of the things that we've sought in this TSA is because the ordinance has a prohibition on, using these TSAs to construct buildings that would house bars and clubs. This is an existing structure that had existing tenants and existing leases. And so we've tried to carve out language that would not disqualify them from being able to do this project, but also not allow them to expand it. So the language relative to that is the idea that they can keep what they've got going on, but they can't bring in more and new additional clubs. And I had a conversation with Councilman Goncalves about that when I first entered into discussions with my client about the new ordinance. And I believe, talking to the solicitor, you do have the flexibility to do that. And Charles was understanding in our conversations about trying to do that as a way to facilitate it, because we can't simply evict these businesses. They're also businesses that have historically been in good standing with the licensing board, particularly Club Ego, have been great tenants. But it does have the pizza shop on the first floor. I don't believe that's in operation right now, but that's been sandwich shops and pizza shops over the years. So interested in reigniting and reinvigorating that with business in the future, particularly by having residents in that location. And then you've seen all these other projects in the 195 area that are immediately adjacent, that this should be a nice complement to it. So with that, Eli can tell you a little bit about the kind of projects he's done, what else he's done in Providence. We'll be brief about that. And then obviously,
Good evening. Thank you for your time. I've done a couple projects in this vein in Providence, kind of moving up in size. My first project was a Victorian, Queen Anne Victorian house on the west side of Providence that was in sort of disrepair. I bought it and restored it, and also turned sort of an abandoned third floor, maybe had been servants' quarters, it seemed in the distant past. But got permission to put an apartment in it, which helped to make it financially feasible to restore the building. From there, I took on a project on Westminster Street, taking the Gatsby building, which was a historic 4-story building, brick building from the 1880s with a little 5th floor penthouse. And I added a full 5th floor and a 6th floor so that I could add 5 residential units while preserving the rest of the building. So it's kind of my interest is to work on expansions and adaptive reuse projects on historic buildings that make use of the historic building. So we're putting these things on top of the historic building. It's bearing on the historic building. We don't need to use as much cement or steel. It's sort of recycling materials in a way. And I also like to use eco-friendly construction materials. I've researched it in great depth to try to have non-toxic materials in my projects and to try to lower the carbon footprint. This project preserves the existing building. It makes use of sort of a You can kind of see it in this picture here. There's sort of a small rundown alley area behind the building that we drop the new building in, and then the new building expands over the roof. So we're getting a lot of density and living space without having to really use much land. So I think it's sort of a urban and environmentally friendly approach to construction. I'm sure some will say that it's a pity that we're not focusing more on affordable housing here. I agree. Doing this project, which requires a lot of intense design and infrastructure to be able to drop it in this way. It's 6 stories, it requires steel. It's expensive to build, and we're really kind of, our hands are tied on that. Although I do believe that adding to the housing supply in a way that's done with, you know, environmentally conscientious construction does help provide housing, you know, that filters down. So that's sort of an overview of the project. Thank you.
Item.
My name is Oscar Vargas, 150 Dora Street. The concern I have is going back to the taxpayers. We go in TSA here, TSA there. And in this particular building, 1-bedroom apartment is $1,600. So I would rather live in downtown than live on the other side, right? But enough is enough. TSA, what is the rush? Why we have to pass all these TSA at the end of December of 2022? Can we wait for the next time and we can work it out and have more review and more explanations how the city is going to survive or how the city is going to make so much, also a little bit of money on these TSAs? I love TSAs, but I love to get something back too, though. Not a little bit, enough to survive, because our city is in need. And that's why I'm here, to protect the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chief Mancini.
Good evening again, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We have listed the testimony on behalf of the petitioner by their legal counsel. As of this evening's proceedings, we were still in need of some additional information. However, we have no objection at this time at the public hearing. And I understand that when the matter is discussed at the Finance Committee in the Rise, there is an understanding that that additional information will be provided to us either immediately thereafter or sometime before first passage. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. That concludes the public hearing for item 4. Madam Clerk, could you kindly read item 5 into the record?
Item 5, an ordinance establishing a tax stabilization agreement between the City of Providence and 101 Richmond LLC.
Thank you. Okay, the petitioner.
Madam Chair, members of the council, I do have a couple of printouts of what the building looks like today, what it looks like we're going to try to do with it, if I may. But fundamentally, my name is Dylan Conley. I'm here on behalf of the applicant 101 Richmond LLC. This application is a classic example of the value of a TSA program. The building on site is completely derelict. It's been abandoned for several years. Moreover, the building cannot structurally support any addition on top of it. So we're functionally stuck with a derelict 2-story building downtown. In other words, the building should be demolished. But because of the city's controls on design in the area and it's the fact that it's a historic building, it's a contributing historic building, we cannot tear the building down. So the bottom line is that the property as a whole is actually worth less than a vacant lot would be in the same location. But with the help of a TSA, we plan on adding 19 small micro units. Those are residential units. It's akin to the approach that I believe we're all familiar with at this point in the arcade, those smaller size units.
We also have a couple of ground floor retail units. It's approximately 900 square feet apiece. We submitted this application back in February. It's gone through departmental vetting. There were no issues or objections. The build was projected as north of 3 million back in February. Since then, as a result of the interest rate environment, the projected cost has gone up. It's gone up relatively substantially. But with the TSA, we expect to be able to rehabilitate and restore the existing building, save the facade, maintain the historic feeling of the streetscape while activating the area. I do have my client here to the extent you have any questions or concerns on details. If there's anything else I can present to you this evening, I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Oscar Vargas, 150 Daughter Street. Coming back again to the TSA. I was reading about the TSA proposal, how the TSA work. The way it works is say that we'll provide jobs to local people. They will buy from local people, and every local hardware store are closing because they're not buying from local people. They give the jobs to contractors, and then the contractors buy anywhere else, like Lowe's, Home Depot, but they don't buy from local hardwares, like a neighborhood hardwares, that they need to at least sell a nail to make a surviving. Like, I go again, something that we got by surprise, no information on it, and these TSAs, yes, bring it over, let's pass it on. Let's work this out, we can have more discussion, how this is going to help the city and help the taxpayers. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dustin Dazubi, and I'm the owner of the building. I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to review this project. I'm really excited about it. I love adaptive reuse, and this is going to be a very nice building.
Once again, Madam Chair, members of the committee, good evening. The administration and the tax assessor's office has reviewed this matter, and we are not in objection. In fact, we are in full support of this TSA. It meets the criteria, it meets the 10-year requirement, and the diminishment of taxes is considered well within the range that was expected. We can give further testimony in committee. Thank you.
How you doing?
Madam Clerk, we're all set, ready to go? Please take your seats. Okay, I am Councilwoman Ryan. I am calling the Committee on Finance regular meeting to order. It is Monday, November 28th, on the rise of the public hearing. Madam Clerk, could you kindly read the roll?
Chairwoman Joanne Ryan.
Present.
Vice Chairwoman Carmen Castillo.
Present.
Councilman Nicolas Narducci.
Still here.
Councilwoman Helen DeAnthony.
Present.
Councilman James Taylor.
Here.
We have 5 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Okay, I would like to ask for a motion to take items 1 and 2 together and waive the reading. May I have that motion?
Motion made, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Vice Chair Castillo, seconded by Councilman Narducci. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay, I'd like to ask for a motion to enter letters received in testimony on items 1 and 2. Motion made by Vice Chair Castillo, seconded
Second
by
motion.
Councilman Narducci. All in favor, aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. The letters are attached to this matter. Madam Clerk, do we have anything else to attach to item 1 and 2? No?
No.
Madam President? Madam President, wow, Madam Chair.
Yes,
Chairman.
thank you.
Sorry, I elevated you already.
You immediately have my attention.
Are we going to be discussion here? or-
Majority Leader, would you like? to-
Yes, so just quickly, after listening to several people talk tonight, I wanted to highlight on a few items about items 1 and 2. The biggest thing that was said was things were rushed. I don't believe things were rushed. I know this has been in talks for at least 3 years that I've been hearing about it. I do think we could have done a better job probably reaching out to the public and having them talk about it, but I don't believe it was rushed. I've read over and heard several testimony, and just wanted to comment on a few things as far as the money wise, that I believe that we're receiving 4 to 5.5% now, and we're going to be getting 9%, which I think is a good deal for the city. They're there for 14 years. One of the things, and as a retired fireman, I wanted to say that the Port of Providence is a little piece of the pie. And I think people confuse, that I know in my area, people confuse the scrapyard, the salt pile, the asphalt as being part of the Port of Providence. In reality, that's not the Port of Providence. So when the fire trucks are sent to Port of Providence, they go where the boats come in to Port of Providence. So I think there's a little disconnect on when people talk about the asthma and different things. It's coming really from that scrap pile. There is things coming all over the place, believe me, but a majority of it is not the Port of Providence. In the new agreement, I think, like was stated, the MBE and WE priorities are going to be their provisions. The strict enforcement, I think we're going to have more enforcement by passing this for the Port of Providence. And what was the other note? And like I said, they're there for 14 years, and this is just an extension for another 16 years. But before all this, this is the good part, but before, when I was listening to everybody testify, I was not going to pass it because I felt two things. One, and I'm going to give it to City Solicitor Dana because he wrote it down better than I can say it. But there was two amendments that I put in, that I would like to put in. And one of them was about the money issue, breaking out the money, and City Solicitor Dana will explain that. But the most important one was the fossil fuel. I wanted in that writing to have no fossil fuel for the extension of them being there for the whole, until, what is it? The 16 more years after 2036, I believe it was. And as far as they met, and Waterson agreed to put in there that if the wind doesn't work or anything, they cannot do anything with fossil fuel. And City Solicitor Dana, I'm going to give him my microphone because he can explain it a lot better than what I'm saying right now.
Thank you.
If I may.
Thank you, Leader Taylor. Solicitor Dana, would you like to clarify some of the thoughts that Leader Taylor just shared with us?
Yes. So Leader Taylor was proposing a couple of amendments. One of them would be to add the following sentences to Schedule B of the ordinance establishing a tax exemption agreement. Under the policies section of Schedule B, the changes would be to add the following sentences. Payments from the Sustainability Projects Reserve Account shall be distributed by the City of Providence's Board of Park Commissioners to advance climate adaptation and mitigation infrastructure. Secondly, payments from the Community Benefits Reserve Account shall be distributed accordingly. $25,000 per year shall be distributed to Ward 10 for community projects at the direction of the Ward 10 councilperson. The remainder shall be distributed by the City of Providence's Board of Park Commissioners for parks and recreation infrastructure projects. That's the financial piece that the majority leader was referring to. The second piece would be an amendment that there would be no increase in fossil fuel infrastructure throughout the entire term of the lease extension at Provport.
Thank you. We need to make a motion. Leader Taylor, would you like to make a motion to add the language as specified by the solicitor
So moved.
into the documents?
Second
Madam-
motion, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Leader Taylor, seconded by Councilman Narducci. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. The motion carries. The matter is amended with those two, I think, very significant amendments that address much of what we heard this evening. So I thank you for that. Any other testimony? Oh, Councilwoman Anthony.
I'd like to make a motion I'd like
What is
to
your
make a
motion?
motion to continue this matter, Madam Chair, and I'd like to and then speak on it.
Well, would you like to speak now?
Yes, I would. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate my fellow councilman's amendments, and I appreciate all the work that our city solicitor has done on this. But it doesn't answer the question as to why we haven't had a robust community engagement. And I think as we've heard a lot of testimony tonight, we have a number of advocates here. I so appreciate all your testimony tonight, because you are the people who are most impacted on the activities at the port. And I think you should be at the table to have your voices heard. And I really don't see why it is that we have to rush this. I mean, I understand that we need to move quickly on it, but I think we could still engage the community that has come tonight to testify so passionately on these issues. I think we have some very good things in this lease. I think the amendment is a very strong amendment, but the things that we don't have is we don't have your voices at the table and your influence. And I will say that I am a little disappointed that we do not have, this is a very sensitive area. It's been an area that's been discussed, but the climate justice plan that I am so proud that this council has passed is not mentioned at all in this. And it doesn't seem to be impacting any decisions. And I think it must be an integral part of what happens when we make this decision on Proport. It's a very, very, very important decision. People should be at the table, and we should be adhering to the climate justice plan, which we have adopted. So I'm making a motion to continue. I think these are all great things. I think we can work together, but I think most importantly, we need to engage our community.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Madam Chair,
Councilman
if I
Narducci.
may, excuse me. I'd like to make a motion to pass item number 1 and then item number 2 with the amendments, and send to the full council for a vote.
Second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Any
Madam
opposed?
Chair.
Item passes. Items 1 and 2 are passed.
Are we open for discussion?
We already voted, sir.
Well, you voted and there was no time for discussion.
Would you like to speak on these matters that have already been passed? You can, please.
Well,
Please, continue.
well, this is, I think it's the first time something like this happens. I mean, a motion is made, it is second, and it is open for discussion, but it was made, it was second, and then a vote was called.
Sure, if you'd like to say something on this matter, we're willing to.
Well,
hear.
absolutely, absolutely. I first of all, I want to thank my community for showing up tonight in such an important matter here. My community is unique and is very special. We do suffer for certain illness in that area that has to do with with everything that's been happening with the Port of Providence. Yes, we have made major improvement there, and we can continue to do that. I have come to this council before when we had issues. First, it was a municipal waste transfer station, and this council supported us. And we passed an ordinance that prevents transfer stations. Then we had the expansion of the LPG. This council supported us, and we put a law, we put an ordinance in place that prevent the expansion from LPG. I mean, listening to everyone point here, I hear some of the benefits in this proposed ordinance and agreement. We spoke, I heard about the financial benefits. I also heard about the master planning, which is also a master plan that will be done after the fact, which I don't think it's adequate. We also heard about the illness and the childhoods and the neighbors getting sick. Doing this, Madam Chair, is actually signing a blank check. We enter into this contract today and we approve this, and then we're going to see the results later on. It's all based on trust. And although that is a good thing, but I cannot base my comment here and my belief on trust. Now, when it comes of having the responsibility of representing 12,754 constituents that are in needs, and they are here, some of them are here tonight, calling on this council to continue this matter. I think it would have been proper to continue it, as there was several constituents that said earlier that if this is a good deal, it'll be a good deal today, it'll be a good deal within a few months. I don't see why we needed to rush this. I understand that a vote has been taken. I thank Councilman Taylor for the couple of amendments that certainly is a step in the right direction, but I think there were more steps that could have been taken to ensure public safety and to ensure that this is a great plan for the city of Providence. It's 30 years from the time that we entered into this contract. We have time to get this right. You know, in 30 years, a lot of us are not going to be here, but our children's will. And they'll probably be questioning, why do we make this move? And I don't know whether this could be the best possible plan for the city of Providence, for the neighborhood that I represent. But tonight, I don't know that because information was not given to me at the right time when I asked for it. So if Councilman Taylor was informed about this, I congratulate him on that. I was not fully informed, just bits and pieces. So, this is not the way we're supposed to do things. Now I just gotta pray that what is being proposed, the way that it was being proposed to us and to our community, that is gonna come true, that it is a good plan. But normally we have to assure our constituents what it is that we're delivering for them. Now I need to deliver promises. I don't know if those promises are gonna be kept. I'll pray on it, but this is not right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? The motion has been made and seconded. The matter has passed. Thank you. Item 3, please. Madam Clerk.
Item number 3, an ordinance in amendment of ordinance number 2019-55, number 541, approved December 13, 2019. An
Okay.
ordinance establishing a tax stabilization agreement for E2000 Realty LLC located on Assessor's Plat 113, lots 232, 233, 234, and 235, 541 Hartford Avenue.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a PowerPoint presentation. Shh. We have a PowerPoint presentation to be added to item 3. May I have that motion to add? Motion made by Vice Chair Castillo to add the PowerPoint presentation, seconded by Councilman Narducci. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Okay, we have a substitute for item. Is that all, Madam Clerk? We have a substitute for item. We have a substitute for item 3. May I have a motion to add
Joey, we
that?
got a meeting going on here.
Motion made by Vice Chairman Castillo, seconded by Councilman Narducci.
Second motion.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Item 3 has been substituted. Is there anyone here that'd like to speak? The petitioner, the solicitor? Do you have any comments on item 3? We heard testimony. Treasurer Lombardi, do you have any comment on this? You do? Please.
Madam Chair, the substitution came in late today. When I read it, I did see some additional amendments. So this is on the amended
Yes, sir.
copy. So, well, let me just go through it. This is a 10-year stabilization, and that's one of the amendments. So in section 2.1, it says grant. In there, it says it's a 15-year stabilization. That is incorrect. It's a 10-year stabilization. If you go to section 2.2, it does identify it's a 10-year stabilization, but the years are incorrect. So it says tax years, it's 2023 to 2032.
Okay.
All right. And in reviewing it, if you go to, this isn't an amendment, it's just a statement. On section 5, we have the MBE, the Internal Revenue Service, First Source by Providence, apprenticeship, all of the required items for a TSA. Going to section 9, we had that changed. This is part of the amendment in regards to the Parks and Recreation Fund, of it being 7%, not a flat amount of the savings. And I think that's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much,
welcome.
Treasurer Lombardi. Chief Mancini, would you like to offer testimony? Please, you can come behind the rail, sir. Please.
I do. Lawrence Mancini, Chief Financial Officer of the City of Providence. Madam Chair, members of the committee, we were here this evening and at the public hearing, and we had no objection. We said that we would make comment in committee. The only comment I have, Madam Chair, as is typical for all TSAs, the Finance Department through the Office of Tax City Assessor generally renders a tax or fiscal impact statement that was unable to be done today because, as Treasurer Lombardi has testified, there were some changes that arrived late in the day. As a matter of due diligence, we would just like to have the opportunity to have the assessor's office work with the attorney for the proponent to just review those numbers so that we could have a tax impact statement prepared, provided to the internal auditor, and have that done before first passage. So we
Absolutely.
want to be able to give you that assurance. If that's okay, then we will have no objection on this matter this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Committee members, any questions, concerns, thoughts?
Just
Councilman
a
Anthony.
thought. So we're not going to have the fiscal notes before we vote tonight. I just wanted
I
to.
believe that was what Chief Mancini just testified to, but he assured us he's going to be working with Treasurer Lombardi and make them available to us before we vote on it. Thank you. And if they're ready prior to the meeting, if you could distribute them, that would be helpful. Is that? Anyone else? Committee members, council members, questions here?
Hearing none, Madam Chair, I make a motion to pass item number 3 to the full council.
Motion as substituted. He's, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. In addition to the substitution, Treasurer Lombardi spoke about a number of small changes to the substituted document. Clerk, Madam Clerk, do you have those amendments? Do you have those referenced? Yes. And you can get them from Treasurer Lombardi? Okay. All right. Anything further? We need to vote on those changes. So may I have a motion?
Motion made, Madam Chair.
Motion made by
Second.
Councilman Narducci, seconded by Vice Chair Castillo and Taylor. All in favor to
Aye.
accept the amendments as presented by Treasurer Lombardi? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Ayes
Aye.
have it. Motion carries. Okay, now we can vote on the substitution, correct?
No, damn it, so.
Okay, may I have that motion again?
Motion made, Madam Chair.
Motion made by Councilman Narducci, seconded by Leader Taylor and Vice Chair Castillo. All in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Ayes have it. Motion
I'm going
carries.
to abstain. I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Anthony is abstaining. Okay. Do I have any other documents that need to be entered on the next item? Okay. Madam Clerk, please read the next item into the record.
Item number 4, an ordinance establishing a tax stabilization agreement for 71 Richmond LLC.
Okay. Who would like to speak on this matter? Chief?
Yeah.
And you're already sworn in.
Madam Chair? If you'd like me to just start off.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Chief, thank you. All right, let me get here. So,
Chief,
this-
please take a seat and stay behind the rail.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
This was amended again late today. I don't believe that we have any additional changes. Mr. Heeman, did you text me on a change? Hold on.
The changes was from a 15-year to a 10-year, is that correct?
12-year to a 10-year,
12 to
yes.
10.
We also made it, yeah, oh,
This is a type.
okay. So we also asked for it to be detailed a little more, and that's on page 1. And that's the red wording. There's one mistake that Mr. Heeman brought out was it says approximately 100 construction jobs. The number is 50 construction jobs. But that's the only amendment per se from this afternoon to now.
Okay.
So if you want to continue, this is a 10-year. There's some additional language about transfers to exempt entities that we requested to be put in, and it was acknowledged and done. This has, as usual, the WBE, MBE, Internal Revenue Service, First Source by Providence, apprenticeship, and of course, the Parks and Recreation Fund. So this, this is what was presented. I have no objection to anything in here. I think Mr. Mancini has the same objection, but the chief can explain that.
Chief, please.
Thank you, Chief. Madam Chair, members of the committee, I have no objection. I have discussed this with Council Heeman. They attempted to file the documents through the city's tax office portal, but they were not able to file those in a timely fashion. Our city assessor is here this evening along with I. We have no objection. Same request that you allow us the opportunity to do the fiscal impact prior to first passage, and we'll share that with the city internal auditor.
I have no objection. Councilwoman Anthony.
I have an objection. I'm just wondering why we're rushing this. I mean, these applications should be complete. We should have the fiscal note. We shouldn't be voting on them, and they shouldn't have been heard in the public hearing, I don't think, in my opinion. I guess my other question for Mr. Heeman is whether he went through the citywide department review as dictated by the ordinance. Inspection and standards, public works, planning development, tax collector, licensing, city solicitor. I'd like to know whether all those steps were taken.
Mr. Heeman, please come forward, take the mic, identify yourself. We're going to swear you in, and hopefully you can answer Councilwoman Anthony's questions.
Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your name and your title.
Nicholas Heeman, Darrow Everett, attorney for the applicant. So I don't know how that process works. This was the first time that I had a tax stabilization that went through the online application process. I believe it was only the second one that's done that. So we completed portions of the application. I want to say October 21st, we saved the progress into that. And then there were some additional documents that just weren't in our possession at that time. From prior inquiries, we were under the impression that when similar to other things in Viewpoint, where you go in and you save your progress, that the city side of that can see it. It wasn't until today that we realized, or we were made aware of the fact that that was not possible with the TSA applications, as we had experienced in other areas of city government that use Viewpoint, which is why they couldn't do the fiscal note. So we thought they could see it. Apparently they couldn't. So, I mean, I don't know that we send it to the various departments for that inspection. I don't know how that process works. Never been through that process under this new ordinance before. But all the information is there. This is a project that does have final stamp plans, I believe, so it should all be there because they've got the DDRC approvals. But I do know from dealing with the tenants that the licensing issues would be in compliance because the tenants are in good standing and aren't clients of mine, which should tell you that they're in good standing because they're not in trouble. But as for the rest of it, I don't know the answer to that question.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Chief Mancini, do you wish
I-
to provide any further response?
May I ask one more question?
Hold
I'm
on,
so-
please.
Okay.
Would you like to just offer any further
Well,
response to the
Madam Chair,
question posed by Councilwoman Anthony?
Madam Chair, in response to Councilman Anthony's inquiry, as I said, because of the inability for us to see the document, we weren't able to prepare a formal tax impact statement. But I can tell you, based on reasonable estimates and based on the size of the project at 3 million, it's probably no greater than approximately 350 or 370,000 tax savings to the applicant over the 10-year period. But we would like to do it on a revised and updated accurate provision, and we'll make sure that it's been completed by the city assessor's office and furnished to the internal auditor well before first passage.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Anthony.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure the application fee has been paid.
Counselor?
We had a check. They said they wanted us to pay online, which I guess was the hold, why we couldn't hit submit for the full thing. So when we took care of that today, the application fee was paid via credit card in full. Yes.
Thank you.
All set? Any
Thank you.
other questions? Committee members, council members? Any further clarification? Do I need to make? Yep, I subbed it, I thought. Okay, let's sub it first with the amendments.
So moved.
As posed by the treasurer on motion made by Majority Leader Taylor.
Second motion.
Seconded by Councilman Narducci. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. We have a substitution that we're now going to vote on. May I have a motion?
Motion made, Madam Chair.
Second.
Motion made to recommend approval to the full council as substituted. Motion as substitutes, a sub, right? Sub as amended. Okay,
Second.
motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Ayes have it.
I'm going to abstain.
Councilwoman Anthony is abstaining. Ayes, motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Madam Clerk, item 5, please read that into the record.
Item number 5, an ordinance establishing a tax stabilization agreement between the City of Providence and 101 Richmond LLC.
Okay. Who do we have here? The administration? Treasurer Lombardi, please.
Madam Chair, this is one that was put in quite a while ago, but seemed to have been lost in the system. In this, there's no amendments on this one. This one follows pretty closely the ordinance. And I'm trying to, let's see, so we asked that, so there was no amendment because I spoke to the attorney prior to him even submitting it, and we had all of the additional language put in. There was additional language in the project. We have all of the usual things of Internal Revenue Service, MBE, WBE, First Source, by Providence, Apprenticeship, and of course, the Parks and Recreation Fund. But this is the closest to the ordinance that I think has been submitted. It actually copies much of the ordinance that's presently in place.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Chief, would you like to comment on behalf of the administration?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. Thank you, Treasurer. We are in full support of the agreement. Thank you, Treasurer, for the amendments. Madam Chair, we did have the opportunity to prepare the tax impact statement. This is a 10-year tax stabilization agreement based upon the values, the construction cost, and the model that's appropriate for the 10-year agreement. There'll be a total savings to the applicant over the 10-year period of $370,000. The taxes that will be paid will total $645,775. The taxes that would have been due without the stabilization was $1,016,000. A total savings to the applicant of $370,582. Madam Chair, members of the committee, we recommend approval.
Thank you, sir. Committee members, questions? Any questions? Council members, questions? May I have a motion?
Motion made to pass item number 5.
Motion
Second.
made. Motion made to pass item 5 by Councilman Narducci, seconded by Leader Taylor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion carries. The item is passed.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn made by
Second.
Councilman Narducci, seconded by Leader Taylor. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. We are adjourned. Thank you all